Welcome to Choosing Us. I'm Brittany.
I'm Jake.
And together, we're the LaGrassos. As high school sweethearts, best friends, and ultimate long-distance survivors,
We're talking Dallas, Texas to Japan.
we've learned and developed some tools to keep our relationship full of life and fun.
If you want to learn how to navigate life while creating the relationship of your dreams, you are in the right place.
So whether you're dating, married, navigating long distance like we once did, or somewhere in between,
We hope we can make you laugh, think outside the box, and dream bigger as we walk alongside you wherever you're at.
we'll be hosting you on this journey through honest, unscripted conversations centered on biblical principles.
Together, we will be embracing the challenges
And joys,
of relationships, knowing that though it's not always easy,
choosing us is always worth it.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Choosing Us podcast. I am Jake,
I'm Brittany.
and together we are the LaGrassos.
LaGrassos.
Today we have an exciting topic. We are on the personality test, just a fun fact. Enneagram, StrengthsFinder. I'm not a big Myers-Briggs person, to
Love
be honest.
languages.
Love languages. I know there's more I'm missing, but we're all about the personality tests. That being said, the reason I say that is because today we're talking about choosing communication. Communication is one of Brittany's top strengths. And I think it's actually the top strength
Yes.
on the StrengthsFinder test. If you don't know about the StrengthsFinder, this is not an ad for them, but sure they can sponsor us. We have if you
That'd
take
be
the
pretty
test,
dope.
you get your 5 top strengths. They're basically your most natural oriented. We'll just use strengths for the word, aptitudes, skills. I don't know. And the number one for Brittany is
Communication.
communication. So we are going to dive deep into communication today, not because it's just about Brittany, although that's pretty cool, but because it is very important to communicate in a relationship. If a relationship isn't having communication, the relationship isn't growing.
Yeah. Mic drop.
So
Boom.
to begin, Brittany, let's see, where do we want to start? What should I prompt the question with?
Ooh, hot
Unscripted.
seat.
How have you seen? Or let me softball this. Just throw it up to you.
Okay.
Nice little t-ball. What would you say was the most extensive time of our growing in our communication ability?
Oh, easy answer. A long distance from Dallas, Texas to Osaka, Japan. Like, we had to solidly communicate well, or our relationship would not have grown as it did. And we figured out, even though there was FaceTime, we actually had mentors who did long distance via email, which I don't even know how that worked out. I mean, they're married and they've got a wonderful family.
For the
Now-
record, I believe I wrote you 1 letter in Japan.
You wrote me more than 1 letter. I have a box of them.
Mailed to
Yeah.
Japan? I remember I sent you away with letters.
Yeah,
But I'm pretty sure I mailed.
We corresponded. We did some snail mail
Yep,
situations.
we were
stuff.
pen pals.
Yeah, and then you sent me flowers for Valentine's Day. You did a lot of stuff. Anyways, back to
Ordering in
communication.
Japanese, it was quite crazy.
That was insane. Back to communication. I was thoroughly impressed, by the way. That has definitely been the most challenging season of communication, but communication all the way around is super important just to make sure we're on the same page, that we're growing together, we know where we're headed. And in that season, that 18 months while I was living in Japan with my family, we really had to carve out, expectations and communicate very, very clearly what we wanted, what we needed in the relationship, growing, how we were going to do that.
Yeah.
I often brought you on FaceTime around the city and showed you a lot of different parts of my city, and then it was really fun to show you those in person. So I don't know if that answered your question.
Ultimately, yeah, that was the season was Japan, that we grew the most in our communication ability. And so I think what we were not scripting, but we were just talking about what we were going to talk about today. And I think one of the most important things, so there's different types of communication,
Yeah.
right? And so we talked about a little bit about our tool last week that combines these 2 types of communication. But one is your more strategic, your more tactical, your more task-oriented communication, right? Like who is going to, for us, we don't have kids, who's going to let the dog out? Who's going to give her meds? Who's going to
Pick up her meds.
She's a high maintenance dog. We'll do another episode on Roxy at some point. But who's going to, do the dishes, do all the things that really
make
don't
the household run.
Yes, but really don't you don't love to do, chores. It's the things that need to be done, but that's not giving life, right?
Yeah.
And
That's so that you can just survive.
yeah. So it is, but we do need to have that communication. That way we don't have missed expectations. That way we don't miss picking up a med. That way we don't miss, doing prepping dinner or whatever that looks like. And so that's one side of it. And then the other side is the more heart-oriented communication. So making sure that we are not just being task focused, making sure that we're not just getting caught up in the busyness of life, but let's make sure that I say, hey, Brittany, how are you doing? Hey, Brittany, how's your heart? Hey, how can I be better in serving you? How can I love you better? Or just admonishing and encouraging. I saw you do this week, Brittany, and that really, made me, thankful for how great you do that thing. I should give a specific example here. Let's see. Do you have any examples?
Well, we did 7 days of 75 hard.
Yes.
And 365 hard.
Yes.
And
haven't fallen off the wagon yet.
We haven't fallen off the wagon. So you can pick from one of those.
So yeah, we can just take the actual example of doing 75 hard.
For those what am I doing in 75 hard that I don't love to do, but I've done like a champ?
Cold plunging?
Yes.
Yes. So I actually was the one to start our cold plunging journey here. We used to do cold plunges back in high school. I think like Wednesdays, 2 days before the game, we would do, after like a hard practice, we would jump in a bunch of ice tubs, and it was amazing. One time I jumped in twice, and I was so cold the rest of the night. Anyway,
back to the podcast.
Back to
my compliment.
We're getting there. I'm building the story, the background. So I enjoy, to an extent, ice baths. I've been doing cold plunges for a while, and honestly, the last week I just haven't wanted to cold plunge at all, and I haven't done it every day. It's not part of my 75-day hard. Brittany has added it to hers, but Brittany every day is just jumps in the plunge, and she does it with a smile on her face. Listens to all sorts of crunk music,
different types of hype.
We've been getting down to Pitbull.
Today was Pitbull. It was freezing in Dallas. Well, by my definition of freezing. I'm a Texas girl through and through. My blood is thin. I don't like the cold in any shape, way, or form. I don't like being cold. So me adding a cold plunge for 75 days is pretty intense. But I have a mentor, Jen Gottlieb, who has shown me that sometimes you do things to prove to yourself that you can do hard things. You can put fear in the passenger seat. And for me, being cold, it was supposed to be for 1 minute, but I decided to up the ante to 2 minutes. We do hard things, and LaGrassos are not wimps. So I decided 2 minutes in the cold plunge is what I would do every single day. And I sometimes have shaken like a leaf. I've cold plunged in the morning. I've cold plunged at night. We've listened to anything from Pitbull to Britney Spears to a podcast to an audiobook in the cold plunge.
I'm not a big music person because I'm a 5-minute person. So like a 5-minute song, the whole time I'm thinking about where I am in the song. So I'm more of a podcast person personally. But bottom line is Brittany has cold plunged really well. And so me having the opportunity to say, hey, Brittany, I've noticed you've really been consistent with your cold plunging. I know you added that to your 75-day hard. 75 hard. And, it's encouraging. I respect you, they just have that opportunity to connect and share more than you would. More than you would on just a tactical basis. So those are two things that are important that we address as a couple is the strategic, the tactical, what needs to be done, and also the heart to heart and the I see you and the, you're known, you're loved, you're valued, you're heard.
Yeah, absolutely. I think those two things make a difference too when there's two types of communication and there's a time and place for each of them, right? With tactical communication and no heart, you're just like, you're kind of militant. Like your relationship or your marriage, there's no fun. There's no like spice or any like pursuit. It's just a constant, hey, we need to do this. Hey, we need to do that. Like that's not fun. But then if you're only saying, if you've got only heart and no tactics, and you're just like, oh my gosh, babe, I love you so much, and like,
would you please take out the trash?
No,
I'm saying you get to that point because you're not actually taking care of the things.
Yes, I didn't know this was an action class.
So yes, so there needs to be a balance of both having the tactical, the strategic side, but then also the love and connection side as well.
There's also, are we doing this little section?
I think so, at least for now.
Yeah. So part of that too is you can get tools to help you figure out how to communicate, whether that be like, this is not an ad. Like, I feel like we're just giving away all the resources we use, but there are question decks you can buy for breaking the ice, or we use one for the more deep heart-to-heart questions. It's called the intimacy deck, but they do have an icebreaker deck. They have other things like that. There are plenty of questions that you can ask each other. You can even Google like fun questions to ask your significant other. Like, I don't know if it really is difficult for you to converse, you can find ways to talk about things that you normally wouldn't, to see a different side of your boyfriend or girlfriend or your wife or husband. I think the most fun we have is when we just like ask each other random questions. We used to actually, this reminds me. Do you know what I'm about to say?
Yes, I know, because
Why
I
don't you say it?
still try to do it. So we have, well, let me just preface this with, we have different sleeping patterns. And so back in the day when we were dating, you know, first love, you know, you're
infatuated. You've got all the googly hard eyes
and
for this
so
person.
we would stay up so late at night, just on FaceTime
or text all night.
But it was a lot of FaceTime. You fell asleep a lot. And we'd be playing 20 questions, which 20 questions, the goal is you're supposed to, like, you know, you have an object in mind, then you ask the person asks 20 questions, and then they guess what the object, or, you know, the thing is, right? So we just kept asking each other questions
to get to know each other.
Yeah, there wasn't actually a object in mind. And so anyway, so we used to do that all the time. And we still try every now and then, but typically I do this late at night though too. I'm like, I come alive at night, and Brittany's like, okay, I'm ready for sleep.
Yeah, you also, another thing about communication, time and place. Timing is everything, and place is also can be everything. Like, you wouldn't, let's say in a public place, bring up something that might cause some friction. That's not good timing or place. You know, situation. Often,
it's like you're at dinner with your family and your spouse, and then you bring up something that you're complaining about your spouse. That wouldn't be good.
Yeah, no. You know, something that we've had to learn in our 10 years together is figuring out when the other can talk. So late at night is not going to be my jam. If Jake wants to talk about anything constructive, it is not late at night with me. Jake what's weird is he's like a morning and an evening person.
If I'm awake, I'm awake. But once I hit that sleep, like I did last night,
yeah,
I was just like,
Jake fell asleep before me last night, which
I was
weird.
So at some point, I'm good all day long, and then at some point, I just shut off. And so
that's good though. Your body needs it.
Yeah, apparently I did.
But anyways, back to time and place. Timing and place for talks and conversation will be a tool that you can use, but you have to think about it. You can't just be like, I want to resolve this right now, this conflict that's happening, so we're just going to hash it out right now. You can do that, but that might not be best. So if there are certain conversations, if you look hindsight and say, you know what, I could have had that at a different time of day, or maybe when they weren't distracted or preoccupied, maybe I would have gotten a better outcome. Jake also knows, like, there's a book called Guys Are Like Waffles, Girls Are Like Spaghetti.
Oh, yes.
And
I've never read it.
And I have heard someone talk about it, like for you know, dating, relationship, whatever. But Jake always says my spaghetti like freaks out his waffle.
Spaghettiing my waffle.
Yeah. Well, there are certain times when I need to waffle, and sometimes Jake will start spaghettiing my waffle. And I'm like, yo, I can't do that right now. So he knows when I'm in those waffle frames of mind to not throw spaghetti on top, because it just won't work.
Let's just clarify for the audience if they've never heard of this book or the premise of this. So guys are like waffles in that we compartmentalize. Everything has its own box. Everything just fits nicely, and you open a box, you close a box, everything is good, right? Girls, it's like, generally speaking, you have one thought, and then that leads like 15 other thoughts, while you're also passing like 3 other thoughts along the way.
Yes.
And it's just all connected.
More often than not, that is how my brain works. But there are times, plenty of times, when I just need to waffle, especially when I'm like in a workflow, or I've got like a to-do list and I'm trying to hash some stuff out. That's usually when my brain is waffle. And Jake is really like, hun, you're so good at keeping me on task and stuff, but sometimes you bring up like just this one other extra thing, and then I'm like, no.
Well, this is a great lean into my next portion of the conversation, which is one, your spouse most likely thinks differently than you.
Oh,
Brittany and
yes.
I are pretty opposite in a lot of areas, but that being said, we are equally yoked, and
On the important things.
we carry a lot of passion and we carry a lot of energy drive towards our vision together. But at the same time, we just think very differently, and that's not wrong. I remember the one time we were in a class together in college. I think we were in a class or maybe in a meeting or something, and Brittany goes and starts writing on the board, and I'm just like, it is like so stressing me out, because I'm like, in my brain I have like a perfect outline of like topic, you know, support, explanation, topic, support, explanation, topic, and then Brittany's like idea, thought, pattern, and I'm like it's just it was.
But that just goes
it
to
was all
show
over.
how both of us think differently, but we complement each other well
Yes.
when it comes to group projects
Yes,
back in college.
That's what I was getting to. So, point being, your spouse most likely thinks differently than you. But we talked about this, I think, in a previous episode. But that's a net gain. That's not a net loss, right? That is a power for your relationship. That's not a weakness of your relationship. The two of you can accomplish more with those different ways of thinking than you can by yourself.
Yeah.
And so there's definitely a great value to that. And this isn't a episode specifically on conflict resolution, but communication can influence, of course, a lot of conflict. And so one of the things we were talking about as well is that sometimes, which we've experienced this a lot actually lately, we may be working on the same problem, but coming at it from two very different perspectives or thought patterns. And in doing so, a conflict arises because, for example, I may be trying to just, I'm like whack-a-mole sometimes, like problem pops up, I'm like, bam, done, and Brittany may have a more strategic long-term approach to a certain problem, or have a certain expectation of how it's going to get handled. And so in doing so, the end goal for both of us in that situation is to handle the issue, is to handle the whatever issue arises,
the obstacle,
whatever obstacle arises. But in the way I handle it versus the way Brittany expected it to be handled, it caused a rift or a rupture of how we were, how everything was going, because I may have taken time or effort or some sort of resource to accomplish this task when Brittany wasn't expecting that.
Right.
And so a important thing to keep in mind is, is that an argument or a conversation worth having? Did anything end up getting lost, or, was there any negative side to that, or was it just a missed expectation? But then two, also being able to say, okay, or vice versa. Okay, Brittany has different ways of handling this, and like, that's okay for Brittany to run with this, and my expectation be changed because of that.
And this is not saying like, if something happens out of your expectation, to not say anything, to stuff it, and to just like roll on with life. That's not what we're saying. We're saying, like, you kind of have to rate your conflict or your disagreements. We call them heated fellowships. On, is this like on a scale of 1 to 10? Is this like super serious, like earth shattering for me, or is this something small where like it doesn't really matter, I can brush it off my shoulders, but we're just going to still talk about it to make sure we're on the same page for next time? And we learned that from mentors of ours, rating a conversation, and also holding hands when you're in an argument, heated fellowship, disagreement, some sort of tiff. And I will be the first to say that I'm not the one who wants to be lovey-dovey, especially when I'm heated. I'm spicy and I'm fiery when I'm angry. And Jake's laughing
like a bottle of sriracha over there.
Yeah, because it's true. But but it does help. Like, you can't really be super mad and want to throw darts through your eyeballs at your spouse when you're holding their hand or you're touching and you're being affectionate and kind.
And again, I don't want to make this completely about conflict, but in that same vein, I know a lot of times just throughout our conversations and heated fellowships, the natural instinct or inclination is to turn away, is to, whatever the situation is, whatever breakdown we had, regardless, we're both upset, we're both mad at each other. And my, instinct is just, okay, like, just go our separate way, not, like literally just leave the room, get a break or whatever. And sometimes that may be needed, but a lot of times what I realize is Brittany really just wants a hug. And side note, she may be hungry, but a lot of times she really just wants a hug, and she wants to be supported and heard and valued in that. So Anyway, back to communication stuff.
And I think that goes back to time and place. Like Jake has, if you watched the last episode, has studied me long enough to know that when my blood sugar is low or I haven't had food, I get a little bit more emotional, and sometimes conversations are not the best to be had at that time. So
snack with me.
Jake, yes, it's like Snickers. I'm not me when I'm hungry. It's true. So sometimes if we're getting into an argument, Jake has the know-how to say, hey, wait, when's the last time you ate? Eat some food, and then we'll have this conversation afterwards. But that's just time and place. That's awareness of you, your partner, like how you want to show up for your relationship, and how you can come at conversation and communication in a healthy manner that is constructive to both of you, because no one likes going round and round and arguing and just like being at their wits' end, not feeling heard. Like both parties get tired of that quickly, whether that's you feel unheard or they feel unheard or you both feel unheard. Like no one likes fighting. No one wakes up and is like, yeah, let me just go fight with the whole world today. Like no one wants that. And
you
this
wake up on the wrong side
and
of
some
the
of these tools you can use in like outside of your relationship. You can use in friendship. You can use at work. Like if you want to ask your boss for something, ask it when they're not like in the middle of a report or up to their eyeballs in stress. Like you want to, you kind of, it's like, it's going back to when you were a kid and you would not manipulate your parents or pit them against each other, but kind of, I'm not saying to manipulate your spouse.
Most kids try to do that.
Yeah. I was smart, and I would ask both my parents all the time, and then my parents would talk and be
separate conversation.
No. Anyways, all I'm saying is some of these nuggets can be used outside of your relationship. Now, it'd be really weird if you were, using the heart-to-heart stuff with your boss or your colleague. That would be really strange. Unless you work with your spouse, like Jake and I are.
I'm her boss. It's great.
What? Excuse me. We are co-owners.
Yes.
Co-founders.
So, bringing it back, Brittany.
Sorry.
A few tangents there. We need to communicate better about our episodes. Just kidding.
This is unscripted. Hey, you went on a cold plunge tangent. So,
I just like to highlight the fact that I can say anything I want because we don't have a script. It's really
Jake, just keep going on, babe.
Next focus I wanted to bring up is more along those conversations of the heart to heart. A lot of times we may try to communicate love, communicate affection, communicate value to our spouse, significant other, but we may not be communicating it in the right way. Dun, dun, dun. Intro love languages. Boom.
Okay, so.
I wasn't done.
Okay, continue. You looked at me like it was my turn to talk.
I wanted to get the visual effect of you being like, oh man, he's so clever. Didn't happen. So.
You totally set me up.
I set you up to be like, anyway. So love languages are something that I actually got introduced to by Brittany. Brittany did a lot of personal growth throughout high school and all of those years, formative years. And I kind of got thrown into it.
Wow.
In a good way.
Okay, I was going to say, don't say like you didn't like it.
No, loved it. It's great. And so love languages, the context is that there are 5 love languages. Mm-hmm. Great. Now I feel like I'm in the hot seat because Brittany's staring at me. There are 5 love languages, and each of them, they are words of affirmation, acts of service, physical touch, quality time.
What is my other love language?
Physical touch, your quality time.
The other one?
Gifts. Yes, that is the lowest on my personally.
And those 5 are, everyone has some sort of them. Some you could have like 0 on acts of service or gifts or whatever, but you take this quiz and you give and receive love in this way. So my top 2 are quality time and gifts. Jake's is words of affirmation and physical touch. And yeah, so he's good at giving me hugs when I need them.
And Brittany, throughout the years especially, has been good with writing me letters because really, and this is just me, but a lot of times I just want to know that I am personally like doing a good job. That's also my Enneagram. I'm a number 1. Good, bad, right, wrong.
Jake really likes to be told he's doing it. He's
greatest fear is being corrupt.
Jake just really needs a gold star. Like if I could give him a gold star every day, maybe I need to do that like Mario Kart or Mario Party, give him a gold star.
I hate Mario Party. The game takes way too long. Anyway, point being is Brittany, though she is not naturally inclined to give words of affirmation, she's more naturally inclined to give time and lots of other things. But she, knowing that words of affirmation is one of my high love languages, she will go out of her way to intentionally write me a card or write me a note and just say that I know I'm doing a good job, I'm valued, respected, loved. And that fills up my love bucket a lot. And vice versa. I think I do a job in making sure Brittany has a lot of quality time and is held when she needs to be and is fed when she needs to be and can give her gifts when, for whatever reason, because that fills up her love bucket.
And yeah, I just think, it's important to know what you each need and to see how you can reciprocate that kind of love, especially if they're needing it. It doesn't have to be anything super fancy for gifts. Like, it could just be like, hey, I was at the store and I saw this chocolate bar and I know you like it, so here it is. And I am not ashamed to say that I'm kind of food motivated. I love candy. I love chocolate. Ferrero Rocher, plug. They're not even sponsored. They don't sponsor us. I don't know. If they want to, sure. This is just going to be a plug, but they've got a new chocolate bar out there and it's like the Ferrero Rocher, the gold little chocolate
like
thing.
A Hershey bar,
but in a bar. And so they have like the mousse and the nuts, and they have dark milk and white. So like, what?
I know they have white.
Yeah. We saw at the store the other day. Anyways, we're doing 75 hearts and I'm doing no sugar for like the next 2 months. But anyways, it can be something like that. It doesn't have to be extravagant. Like, oh my gosh, I bought you like $5,000 worth of roses. Like, no, it doesn't have to be that. It could be something small. Quality time can be like, hey, you have been working all day long. Let me kidnap you and take you to coffee. Or words can be a simple text throughout the day. Like, hey, you're doing a great job. I miss you. I love you. Can't wait to have dinner with you tonight. Or a card or a note.
And part of that is also keeping the structure to allow these things. So we talked again last week about our weekly resource, and a part of that is scheduling date night, which is quality time, which regardless of your love languages, you both need date night together as much as possible. And so having that structure to say, okay, this we have scheduled, this we are looking forward to, this we're not going to bump or move because it is one of our priorities. It is, a
non-negotiable.
Non-negotiable for both of us. And that allows you to fill up the love bucket. And ultimately, we've heard this from several different resources, but it's sometimes you think of your love bucket, your spouse's love meter, loveometer, how much love they have in their bank, and you want to be consistently making deposits every day. Yeah. It's a lot easier to make a $5, $10, $20 deposit every day than waiting every few months and making a $200 deposit.
Yeah.
And having those frequent deposits make sure that you're consistently putting in the opportunity for growth, putting in the opportunity for things to accumulate and not get withdrawn because you're frequently making those deposits.
Yeah. I think it goes back to consistency, and I mean, this all falls under communication. So, that's kind of like not the verbal every day. That's like the underlying communication. Like, how am I communicating with you that I love you? And part of it is acts, like acts of service, quality time.
It's not a 0 to 100 or 0 or 100. It's not a yes or no. It's you have each of them to an extent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. What else?
Brittany, last few minutes of our episode, we can take turns doing this, but as far as the importance of communication in a healthy, thriving relationship, what would you say?
I think what makes communication like the most important piece of communication is knowing that you're in a safe relationship, that you're with a person who makes you feel safe, that you can communicate clearly, authentically, be who you are, and truly go towards that relationship of your dreams with the person who is going to push you to be better, challenge you to be your best self. And I think without that safety, communication can be difficult. And so when you're in a healthy relationship like that, the communication, it doesn't always come easy, and it doesn't always come naturally, but that first step doesn't seem as scary because that person's not gonna, like come down on you or like turn or be a different way with you. I think we touched on this last episode too about, I was super vulnerable, and we're just walking through this season where I'm, kind of dealing with some underlying stuff that I had never really dealt with before. And I would not have at all been able to share any of those things on my heart if I didn't think that Jake was a safe place for me.
Yeah.
And so because he has shown over time, over years, a decade's worth of years, that he is trustworthy and he's the keeper of my heart, that he's a great safety net for me. Now I'm my own person, but when it comes to sharing our life and my heart with him, I knew that he wasn't going to take that and make me feel any certain way. So I think the most important part about communication, whether it's positive or praising each other and saying words of affirmation or sharing dreams and hopes.
Girl, you look good today.
On wildest dreams. I think for me, and really in a lot of relationships, safety is the number one thing.
Yeah, we talked about that last week. What did we say?
We're talking about vision and vulnerability.
Yeah,
a little bit.
You can't have experienced true love without being vulnerable.
Yeah.
And you can't be vulnerable without feeling safe.
Yeah.
And so that's just a great reminder that safety is the core, the already existing condition that needs to be met before you have healthy communication. And I think one thing I would say is, one, communication is a skill that can be developed.
Yeah.
It is not you may naturally be good, your spouse may naturally be good, or may naturally not be good at communication. And for whatever reason, nature, nurture. But it is a skill that each of you can develop. And so there's always opportunity for improvement, and there's always opportunity for there's always opportunity for growth in that area. I don't want anybody to think that, it's just, we don't have communication, so, there goes our thriving marriage.
No.
And so it's definitely something that we have developed over the years. We're still growing and
it's like a muscle. It's like you go to the gym to
get those quads.
Yes, we did like that yesterday. You go to the gym to work on yourself, and it's not going to happen overnight. It's the consistency over time that will grow. And in communication, it's the same thing. It's consistently choosing, okay, I'm going to have a better tone. Okay, I'm going to work on time and place. Okay, I am going to say
a lot of mental notes.
I'm going to say that this compliment to my spouse who needs words of affirmation, even though it feels completely unnatural to me. When I first started giving Jake compliments and words of affirmation, it was totally not in my wheelhouse. But I have two people in my life, my dad and my husband, who are words of affirmation people. And I have had to learn how to give words of affirmation. And I could go without, completely. If you just spend time with me and sit with me and maybe give me a chocolate bar or some fancy gifts every once in a while, or, just think of me in that way, totally good. I could go without you telling me, I see you, that's nice for me to hear, but that's not my number one need. And so over time, I've learned you can always learn and grow just a little bit every day. So we just want to encourage you with that, to not think that, oh, I'm just so far behind, or, oh, I'm never going to get there. Well, it's not going to happen overnight, but it won't happen at all if you don't take that first step. Oof. So take the first step. Everyone's a beginner at some point in time. Yep. We were not experts at relationship and dating when we first started dating, at all.
No.
And I think over time and over practice, we've gotten really good with it.
Yeah. And I think that's part of it, is having that growth mindset of it is possible, and really just a curiosity. And this goes back to the 20 questions. I know we said we're ending, but this goes back to the 20 questions you're asking your significant other questions, is having a level of curiosity. When you're dating, when you're in that googly eyes phase, you're always wondering, oh, I want to know more about them. Yeah, I wonder how cute they look when they wake up. Oh, and then you get married. Just kidding. That's what people say. That's a joke. Are
you saying that I'm not cute when you wake up? Excuse.
It's adorable when you wake
Honestly, up. I'm super passed out, and I'm not super cute.
I do have this one picture on my phone.
Do not. Maybe we'll save that for another day.
But point being, you have a level of curiosity about your significant other when you're in that googly eyes phase, and not letting that die out, and that will help feed your communication.
Yeah.
And so, bottom line is, communication is a skill that can be developed, and that is an integral part of a thriving relationship and the relationship of your dreams.
Yeah. So we hope you like this episode, choosing communication. If you thought it was helpful, share with a friend, share with your wife, your husband, your spouse, your boyfriend, your girlfriend.
And we also developed that tool that we referenced last week.
Yes, that will be very helpful for your communication.
Weekly huddle. So that is available online. Is it in our bio?
It should be in our bio. Check the show notes. It'll be there as well.
Just look at us on Instagram somewhere.
Yes, follow us on Instagram if you haven't already. On YouTube, make sure you follow us, and you can watch this if you aren't already watching it. Spotify and all the other podcast places for audio, and we will see you next week.
Do we know what we're talking about next week?
We don't know yet.
It's going to be awesome, though.
It's going to be great. All right. Bye.
See y'all.